The gender gap. Too many white men. From liberal Hollywood to progressive Silicon Valley, and yes, even esports, there simply aren't enough women or people of color to meet the demands of those who claim diversity as a virtue. But don't worry, they aren't counting. They don't see race, except when it's a bunch of white men. At this point, it's become a near universal truth that diversity initiatives are inherently a good thing. Say otherwise, and you can expect to be classified as a bigot, racist, sexist, any combination of the above, or even accused of having some sort of phobia for simply questioning the demands of the diversity crusaders. This debate is very heated within my own industry, considering that a lot of programmers and tech CEOs tend to be men, and more specifically, white men. It is by all objective accounts an industry filled with white men, so the saying goes, we have to do something about it. But considering we're in an industry where many people would consider themselves to be smart, and the general perception of the requirements to work in the industry reflects this as well, I can't help but notice the relative simplicity of the criteria that is used to measure diversity within our industry and diversity debates in general. First, there's the issue of discrimination within diversity itself. They claim industries favor whites and men over women and people of color, yet often refuse to acknowledge how Asians, including Chinese, Koreans, and Indians, seem to be doing just fine without groups like Code 2040 at their side to enter such a supposedly exclusionary industry. There's also no diversity within whiteness itself, regardless of whether you're the white son of an upper-class American, the white son of trailer trash in Southern America, or a white European. There's also no acknowledgement of the lack of a gender gap in STEM fields within developing nations. Without the higher standard of living and the economic freedom to pursue degrees in psychology or gender studies, we see women pursuing STEM degrees in much higher numbers in developing nations than we do in more developed and even progressive countries. Even more surprising is the overrepresentation of women earning degrees in science in countries that are far from being viewed as gender progressive. Switch over to the leading industrial economies like America, Japan, Switzerland, and Germany, and you see male-dominated engineering programs. This is very similar to our own past, where kids were forced to work with their parents on the family farm when that was basically all there was to do. It wasn't until it became economically viable enough to support a family off of the labor of one or two working individuals that there was more freedom to pursue activities like an education. Developed nations where economic security is such a central concern to everyday well-being, it's no surprise to see a preference towards engineering and science over gender studies in the humanities. But let's go back to the base issue of diversity itself and what I believe to be the extreme simplicity of the criteria for diversity. Since the tech industry is at the forefront of so much of this within the private sector, let's bring some technology into this argument, specifically artificial intelligence. Today, assuming there's no AI robot hiding from us, humans have not created artificial intelligence. More specifically, we have not created what's known in the AI community as Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI. Tim Urban from Wait But Why states, Artificial General Intelligence refers to a computer that is as smart as humans across the board, a machine that can perform any intellectual task that a human being can. If you've seen the movie Ex Machina, Ava would be a perfect example of what we hope to achieve with AI. A walking, talking, learning form of intelligence humans created that can do anything we can do. What we have today is far from that. What we have today is commonly referred to as weak or narrow AI. Examples of this would include facial recognition within Facebook's tagging feature, the Kasparov killer Deep Blue, or the auto-captioning provided on millions of YouTube videos. All of these provide enormous value to us, but are nowhere near the AI we see in Ex Machina. The reason we classify these forms of AI as narrow or weak is that 1, they're non-sentient, and 2, they solve a very specific and narrowly defined task. Outside of a chessboard, Deep Blue isn't worth much at all. This AI may be classified as weak, but it's still good and increasingly better than humans. AI has already beaten humans at chess, Go, and Jeopardy! Voice recognition software now texts faster than humans. It's a better pharmacist where errors could potentially be life-threatening, and it's already better than doctors at identifying cancer. It may also be better than former Reddit CEO, Diversity Initiative co-founder, and walking liability lawsuit Ellen Pao at identifying minorities in supposedly racist ads. Except, that guy isn't a minority. All of this is weak AI that's trained to one specific task. The technical term for this is known as machine learning. Without getting too technical, computers are basically trained through reinforcement training the same way you teach a dog a new trick. When your dog does something good, you say good dog and you give them a treat. Otherwise, no treat. With a computer, a company like Facebook can give their weak AI a bunch of images, with and without faces, and train it to recognize a human face. Given the numbers of images Facebook has access to, this AI can continually be trained and gets better every day. When I see the diversity initiatives today that consistently push for gender and racial equality, but only of the races and genders that matter to them, I can't help but recognize the inherent simplicity in their demands. To speak in AI terms, I can't help but recognize the weak or narrow criteria that meets their definition of diversity. With an artificial intelligence like the one shown in Ex Machina, that form of AI would be able to interact with you exactly as a human would. They could ask you questions about your parents, your friends, your upbringing, your childhood experiences, the socioeconomic status of you in the various environments you grew up in to gain a true impression of you as an individual. The modern progressive measure of diversity, gender and skin color, doesn't require artificial general intelligence. The AI we truly consider AI because it is as intelligent as a human. No, the modern definition of diversity can accurately be determined with the weak AI that exists today. A computer could be trained to distinguish between colors and facial features to determine race and gender, and to them, that would be good enough. We could use our current forms of AI and address all of this diversity right now. So what does it say about their definition of diversity when it can be automated with a form of artificial intelligence that exists today that we as humans don't even classify as intelligent?